It's been weeks since WrestleMania, since we saw that ridiculously dusty finish when Solo Sikoa came out and did a Samoan spike on Cody Rhodes for him to lose the opportunity of winning the Universal Championship, or the undisputed Universal Championship. I've already kind of stated how I felt about the journey there in my previous video, so you guys can go back and take a look at those. But hearing how they keep trying to make Roman Reigns a GOAT or the greatest of all time, no. I highly disagree. You can't compare Roman Reigns to Bruno Sammartino. You can't compare Roman Reigns, dare I say, even the Honky Tonk Man. And I'm not talking about the main belt champions. I'm talking about champions in general. The champions that I just named, especially Ric Flair, who is by far why I call myself the Nature Girl, one of the reasons. They were actually present. Now, I know everyone's saying that, well, of his condition that he has leukemia. I'm not blaming him for having that disease. No one deserves that disease. No one. But I do blame the company themselves for literally booking themselves into a corner when you're going to give somebody a championship that doesn't have the condition to go all the way through with it. Now, I don't want to hear no one else talk about part-time champions, make complaints about part-time champions like everybody made a complaint about Brock. And I probably was one of them. But in this case, no one can, because people keep giving Roman Reigns a pass because of his illness that he's had for so many years. It's not the fact that he has an illness that is the issue here. The fact is that the company gave the title to somebody who cannot be full-time with it because their body, their health cannot allow themselves to be full-time with it. If y'all don't believe me, look at every single match that Roman Reigns has been in and how much shit talking he does for like 10 minutes. I've already made jokes about that in some of my videos, saying that it's like a lover that won't shut up talking about himself while he's making love to you. Yeah. Or I probably said it in other ways. But regardless, he's like that. Keep talking for 10 minutes in the ring. 5 minutes in the ring. It's reduced a little bit. Probably maybe 3 to 5 minutes. But he still talks a lot in the ring. You can tell when he's starting to run out of gas. Him being the greatest of all time? No. Because honestly, the guys that I've named did not need help to get to where they were. And even, I'm going to mention JBL. And the reason why I'm mentioning JBL is because not only JBL is a very good wrestler, the fact is he's a damn good heel. To the point where you really wanted him to lose a title and you didn't care who took it. It happened to be John Cena, but the fact is when the belt was off of him, it mattered. When you face these wrestlers and beat them, it mattered. It's how they used the championship, not how long they've had it. That doesn't matter. That's irrelevant now because the territories are long dead. The people that you were able to see went from territory to territory to territory. You saw them in different spots, probably every week, every month. Now everything is exclusive. Everything is exclusive to that brand. Years don't matter anymore. They don't. It's all about what you do with it and how much effort you put into it. There's only so much Roman can do. He has to be carried in nearly every match he's in. In every faction he was in, he had people carrying that faction. When it came to the Shield, let's be real. People were looking at Dean more so looking at Roman. And it wasn't just the fact that the company was pushing him to the moon when nobody really cared much about him at the time. It was mainly because Dean Ambrose's character was far more interesting. Seth Rollins was a second because Seth Rollins was more strategic. And I still to this day believe it should be Seth in that position, not Cody. But I digress when it comes to that. When it came to the bloodline, it's not Roman that people are looking at. It's Jay and Jimmy. Especially Jay. Because, yeah, people were looking at Roman when he turned heel because that was something that people were craving for a long time because they were sick of that babyface run. And just when they were about to do it right, before the Royal Rumble, when he finally got mad at Survivor Series, finally went off after all the treatment they gave him, had the crowd popping for him, they blew it when they had him at the Rumble, took him out for 33 minutes of the whole match, only for AJ to take over for the 38. Yeah, at the time we didn't know about his health condition. At the time we did not know. But if they already knew, that was stupid on their end. Why in the world would you have somebody that you knew could not go the distance to be out there to go the distance? Again, I'm not blaming Roman for that. That is a company issue. That is stupid on their end to do that when you knew that he couldn't go the distance. That will eventually set himself up for failure. What happened when he retired Undertaker? Nothing. Everyone hated him more. People were like, well, he became a bigger heel. Did he? Did he? Was that heel heat or go home heat? I call that go home heat, in my humble opinion. People were already sick to death of him because, let's just say, Vince would not let his best dude go. And then you retire practically one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Undertaker is more of a GOAT than Roman. And I know that every wrestling fan would agree with me when I say that. Hell, even Joe Anoa'i, who happens to be playing Roman Reigns, would agree that The Undertaker is the greatest of all time. After he retired him, what happened? Not much. It was more go home heat than heel heat. I will say this about the whole bloodline storyline. The adding of Sami Zayn was probably the best thing that's ever happened because it was getting boring. But I will say that what created heel heat for him was what he did to Sami. They did that right. The build-up was done damn near perfectly. If you wanted Roman to be that heel, they did a really good job doing it. Building up to that point. It wasn't what they did with Taker. It wasn't what they did with Triple H at WrestleMania 32. Good Lord, I don't want to mention that horrible match. But the fact is, it was more go home heat with those two, which should have turned it around. But it turned it around with this storyline. I will give him that. They made him into a bona fide heel when he went up against Sami. So when you had that point, and I don't care what Triple H says, it was set up for the bloodline to start to begin the decline. For it to be completely over? No. That's just not good thinking to think about that. It would have been a domino effect. If it did go through, it would have happened that way. You built up Roman Reigns to be a good villain. Leading on up to the showcase of the Immortals, WrestleMania 39. Everything was set up for him to lose. And he didn't. There's really no way. There's no direction for this to go because he's not even going to be at Backlash. You have two titles. One should be on one brand. The other should be on the other. I may not be a big fan of Cody, but honestly, let's be honest. If he would have won, he would have split him up. He would have brought back the Wing Eagle belt and took that Wing Eagle belt to Raw. If he would have done something to another design, hell, it probably would have been two. The thing is, they booked themselves into a corner, giving him two titles when he knew he couldn't defend it. And the fact that he's a part-time champion, and he is a part-time champion because his health cannot allow him to continue that far, is going to make one brand suffer. But people keep calling him the GOAT just because he's been a champion for 3 years. That means nothing. That means nothing. It's what you do with it. Roman has done nothing with those titles. It's the people that were in the match with him that made those matches something, not him. With everybody that I just named, from the Honky Tonk Man to Ric Flair to Bruno Sammartino, they made stars. They made the people that they wrestled into something. That was their overall goal. With the Honky Tonk Man, I can't really speak on that. But the fact is, he was pretty much one of the best villains to where you wanted to see lose. And whoever took the belt, launched him into the stratosphere. Can we say Ultimate Warrior? Everybody remembers that iconic run when he went all the way down to beat Honky Tonk Man in probably several seconds to take the IC belt. That launched him to the moon because everybody hated the Honky Tonk Man. But when it came to Ric Flair, he went out of his way to make new stars. New stars he picked to make new stars. Every match that he had was memorable. Every match that he had meant something. That title meant something. He made sure that title meant something. Bruno Sammartino, not only was he like a natural strongman in the ring, he made sure that his matches were memorable. They all meant something. They not only cemented themselves as legends, they made the belt worth something. Can we honestly say that about Roman? What has he done to elevate those belts to where they need to be? Besides the fact that it's around his waist and him holding it up. Has it done anything for the Usos? No, because the Usos were already GOATs. The Usos already cemented their legacy before they even showed up in the bloodline. So Sikoa, he probably had a legendary run or whatever he was doing, because I think that I can't remember if he was in MMA or not. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but he has done nothing in the WWE yet. Nothing. Besides the fact that he's related to them. That's it. He hasn't elevated anyone yet. People keep saying he's a GOAT because, yes, in modern day history, for a champion to have the belt that long, yeah, you'd be like, man, he must be a legend. He's not. He just held the belt for 3 years. That's it. That's it. He's not a GOAT. He may have the championship, but for crying out loud, think of every possible way he was able to get it. When it came to Taker, we knew his time was up. Unfortunately, the first time it happened was with Roman. We knew that Triple H wasn't going to wrestle anymore. So yeah, WrestleMania 32 was a way for him to go out. We knew those two were leaving. It was self-explanatory that he was going to win. We knew that. The amazing match that he had with Edge and Daniel Bryan. Who made that match memorable? Not him, Daniel Bryan and Edge. He was able to take the win, but that's all he did. He was in matches as an associate to those that actually made the match something. He was just the third party. He was. I'm not saying that he's a bad wrestler. He's not. But unfortunately, he does not have the propensity at this point to elevate other people. He hasn't done that. He has been carried himself. The one time that I had respect for him as a tribal chief was at the Royal Rumble when he faced Seth Rollins. Even though he lost to Seth technically because of disqualification. That was the first time I saw him go on his own. The first time I saw him actually be a tribal chief. That plummeted after that. That didn't matter after that. The thing is, when you call yourself a GOAT, and I might say, when you call yourself the greatest of all time, when you put yourself up there with the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, even though I'm not saying he's done that, but I wouldn't be surprised other people have, you gotta bring something to that belt. It's not just about you. It's about what you do to that belt and make that belt something. Roman has not done that, at least not in my eyes. He has not done that yet. People are only going by the amount of time he has held the belt. That means nothing now. It doesn't. I really wish that they actually did do a lot more with the whole Seth thing, because not only did he know him and has history with him, and yes, it seems like I'm an advocate for Seth, and I am. I'm not even going to hide that. But the fact is, it makes them both look good. You don't want yourself to call yourself a tribal chief just to say you're a tribal chief. You want to look like that. And I'm going to give this to Bray Wyatt. The first time I saw Bray Wyatt, and when he had his original crew, when he had the original Wyatt family, Luke and Harper. Luke and Eric, Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. The fact that he had those two there, he was like, look, I don't need y'all to fight my battles for me. He sent him to the back, and guess what? He won that match. That's what you got to do when you declare yourself that name. And I know people saying, well, he's a chicken shit heel. He's supposed to be like that. I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, he comes off as a cowardly heel. He does come off as that. I'm not going to lie. But There is something to holding both belts to both brands. You got to elevate your character and make your character worth something more. He hasn't done that yet. He did that only one time and that vanished. And now that he's not going to be at Backlash, it's just going to really make Raw suffer more. I feel bad for Raw. I really do. You got to elevate mid-card belts in order to make yourself, or to make your brand more relevant. You got to make your stars be elevated by mid-card belts. And unfortunately, we don't have anybody that does that. Raw got the United States Championship. And guess who has it? Somebody who got humiliated on the mic by Austin Theory, John Cena, and John Cena not giving a shit in that match. I'm sorry, he didn't. We got a pathetic champion holding that belt right now. And that's the only title they got. The women's titles, don't even get me started. Don't get me started on any of that. It will be an hour. But Roman is no GOAT. He hasn't earned that spot yet. And no matter how long he holds those titles, he has to make something out of them. And he has not done that. Because the people who've already he's surrounded himself with the Usos, and hell, even Paul Heyman, they've already made themselves legends. Solo Sikoa is the only dude that he needs to make a star. He needs to go out of his way to make him a star. With him being a Universal Champion, that's the only way that it can work. That's the only way he can cement himself as a legend. Not just with that, but also be able to defend those titles and defend it on his own. He has no honor to him. And I know he's a heel. He's a villain. He's not supposed to have honor to him. But you're supposed to make that belt worth something. He hasn't done that yet. But I'm sorry. I highly disagree with anybody calling Roman Reigns a GOAT. He's not even close to being that. He's got a long way to go, at least in my eyes.